Hello friends, and welcome to my channel. Have you been thinking about how weird and never-ending the 2020 campaign seemed? Well, I work on campaigns for a living, and I'm here to confirm that you're not wrong. Since the election was called on November 7th, let's call it residual activity, has held our attention long past the traditional timeline, further fueled by the insurrection on January 6th. It's been an exhausting time to partake in democracy. But don't rest now, we've got more elections coming up. Yes, we have to keep doing this. Otherwise, that will happen again. No, really, that's exactly how it works. The more we stay involved, the more we learn about the election and policy-making systems, identify where changes need to be made to improve them, and bring in folks along the way who will make those changes. This will bring transparency and trust to the system, so we're not listening to some lunatic tell us it's rigged. I know it didn't help this year that rules and systems for voting were changing constantly because of the pandemic. However, in any given year, most people aren't aware of all of the ways they can vote and the various rules and deadlines for each option. That's why a campaign's #1 job isn't just to get you to want to vote for the candidate. It's to make sure that you actually do vote for the candidate. It's not just the who, but the where and when. And on top of that, it's different in every state. Are you starting to feel a little anxious about it? That's why I'm here. I'm SJ, and I'm here to help you get ready with America for the 2021 elections. Let's put on a fierce face and take part in democracy together. All the products I use on my face will be listed in the description box below, and I'll warn you now that whatever you like that I'm using is probably discontinued. The vast majority of states do not hold major elections across the state in odd number years. In this context, I consider a major election to be for a state legislature, governor, or congressional representation. County, municipal, and school board elections do happen during the odd years, including big city elections like New York, Boston, and Atlanta, which are this year, but that doesn't put the national spotlight on an entire state, so anyone living outside of the city limits can easily lose track of what's happening. Now, I grew up in New Jersey, so I voted every single year until I lived in DC in 2019 and felt weird not voting that November. But maybe you don't need to vote every year when you're not a state and your budget is controlled by the federal government. New Jersey and Virginia are the two states who hold statewide legislative elections in odd-numbered years, and both have their governor's races this year as well. In New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy will be running for re-election to a second term, and all seats in the state senate and assembly will be up for re-election. In Virginia, the governor's seat is limited to 1 4-year term at a time, so the seat is open, meaning current incumbent Governor Ralph Northam will not be running. Also, just the Virginia House of Delegates, the lower house of the General Assembly, is up for election. Every other state aligns their statewide elections with federal elections that happen in the even-numbered years. However, many major cities will hold elections for mayor and city council seats in odd years. In fact, major cities in 35 states this year are holding mayoral and/or council races in 2021. The thing about municipal races is that they're not all the same across the country in terms of when they're held and whether or not they're partisan, aka Democrats versus Republicans, and require primary. If there is a primary race for a partisan position, they're held whenever the state decides to have it. They also can make up their own general election days for municipal elections. meaning that not all municipal elections are held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday of November. If you're wondering why some are partisan and some are not, it's up to the individual governing body. Basically, the founders of the city or county decided whether they were going to have partisan or non-partisan elections and put it in their bylaws, and that's just what we go by today. It's all made up and the points don't matter. To put what I just said into context, here's a brief overview of municipal elections happening this year. So I mentioned New York, Boston, and Atlanta. New York and Boston both have partisan city elections. New York's primary is June 22nd and Boston's is September 21st. The general election for both cities is November 2nd. In Atlanta, mayor and city council are nonpartisan, so they will not have a primary and skip right to the general election on November 2nd. Meanwhile, a slew of cities across several states have general elections on their nonpartisan elections on April 6th. Also happening this year are a smattering of special elections, filling empty seats that are normally filled in even-numbered years. Reason a seat is empty ranges from a glow-up to join the Biden administration, to dying from COVID, to being forced to resign after you posted videos on Facebook of storming the Capitol. 9 states have special elections for open state legislative seats, and 2 states have special elections for open congressional seats to fill a total of 3 open House seats. Then there's the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, but we'll talk about that another time when we get to it. Are you super confused at this point? I understand. My answer to most questions you probably have is, it depends, which is why I want to take this series on a state-by-state basis. My plan is to come to you every other week to talk about upcoming elections and how you vote in them. I'll apologize in advance that I will be posting about some elections past critical deadlines in case you need to update your information or request vote by mail ballot, but the vast majority of these videos will be for primary contests, so you can still get set for the general in November. These primaries go from, well, there already was one on February 16th in Wisconsin, and then all the way to September 21st, and then it's full steam ahead to November 2nd. So, you might be wondering, why should you be listening to me about this stuff? I've been working on campaigns and in nonprofits and government for over 10 years, and my preferred area of expertise is field, or physically getting people to go vote. A year ago, I was working on Bernie Sanders' presidential primary campaign, helping our staff in states doing voter outreach. One of my main jobs was creating texting, phone banking, and door-knocking scripts based on relevant voting actions in each state for things like voter registration deadlines, in-person voting, absentee ballot application requirements, and election day polling information. While most people think of these conversations with voters as the thing that is convincing them to support a candidate, the most important component of these scripts is making a voting plan with the supporter. That's my favorite part of the work. When people actually do the thing and get their vote in, because otherwise, why the hell else are we doing the work? I'm looking at this channel as my way to turn everyone out to vote. There are any number of outlets out there that can give you some compelling arguments for or against a certain candidate, which are much better informed than me. So I'm here to talk you through how to vote, because literally every single state does it differently. The scripts that I mentioned before, I was doing them for 4 states that voted on Super Tuesday, plus 2 more states that voted the next week. No 2 states overlapped all of the same info when it came to voter registration deadlines, early voting, absentee voting, vote by mail, and election day poll opening and closing times. I had all of that information committed to memory, all while making room for new states as we look to future primaries. Voting related specifics are weirdly my thing. And why am I putting on makeup while giving you this important information? I needed a gimmick. Also, I own way more makeup than is necessary for an adult who lives with her parents during pandemic social distancing. So this is an excuse to look nice for people. I am not a makeup artist. I'm just a former theater kid with bad skin who has enjoyed wearing makeup for most of my life, so please don't judge my techniques. I have just acquired them from YouTube over the years. I'd also like to make a disclaimer up front. Voting is a nonpartisan civic practice for a healthy democracy. The voting information I will share with you all is only specific to your state of residency, not any party. My focus is going to be on turning you out to vote, and that will include some commentary on the politics of a state, district, or candidate. I am a Democrat, and a fairly left-leaning one at that, if you didn't figure that out when I said I worked for Bernie. I'm going to have a progressive bias to my content. I do not plan to endorse specific candidates, but I am going to skew towards speaking favorably of candidates and organizations who are also pro-union, support Medicare for all, believe Black Lives Matter, recognize abortion as a safe medical procedure that should be available to pregnant people, are disrupting practices that are ruining our environment and ecosystems and contribute to increasing natural disasters, and are working to dismantle the dynamics that allow white supremacy and gross financial inequity to run our social and economic systems. You'll probably also make the connection fairly quickly that voting accessibility is pretty political, in case you missed everything that happened in Georgia in the last 2.5 years, so I'm not going to avoid it. I also have no idea how these other YouTubers that put on makeup and talk about a topic time this all out so that it works, but I'll get there, I guess, and otherwise you'll see me jump from half my face done to fully done to finish a video. I think that covers it for this first installment of Get Ready with America. Hit the subscribe button to join me in 2 weeks to talk about Louisiana, where we've got 2 congressional special elections, a legislative special election, and a race in NOLA. I've listed some resources in the description box for everyone to check your voter registration, update if you've recently moved, or get set up to vote by mail if that's a thing your state does. If you're interested in being a source for me on the elections and voting rules in your state, please comment below. Several states' websites haven't even started acting like there are elections happening this year, so I appreciate any help. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again soon.